Alright, so after you install the SQL Server extension in Visual Studio Code, the next thing we can do is just to simply create a new file where we can write our commands. Alright, so I'm going to close this and I'm going to go to File, New. Now it is saying that we should select a language to get started. Alright, I could simply just save this as a .sql file, or I can simply click on this option here that says select a language, and the language that I want to use is SQL. So I'm going to type SQL in my little search bar here and select SQL as the language. Right, so it is denoted here with this red looking database icon. Right, now what I'll do before I go any further as well, I'm going to save this file as a .sql file. So File, Save As, and I'm going to call this, so by default it is already a .sql file. I am going to call this my test db, right, and save that. So that's the name of my file. Right, now the next thing I want to do is to establish a connection to the MSSQL server, to SQL Server. So what I'll do is go to View, select Command Palette, and you should be seeing SQL, well, MSSQL Connect. If you are not seeing that, then you can simply type SQL in the search here, and you should see the different commands that you can select or use. First things first though, we want to establish a connection. So I'm going to select MS SQL Connect. Now, I previously set up a connection already. For you doing this the first time, because MS SQL Server is installed locally on your computer, what you want to type here is local host. Right? Let's say you are working with a production environment, or let's say your SQL Server database management system is installed on a remote server somewhere. You could simply just put in the IP address and connect to it. Or if it is cloud-based, then you could do that and connect to it via the cloud, right? So if you are using Azure, for example, then you could set that up. But for us, MS SQL Server is installed locally to our computers, so we are using local host. All right, enter. All right, so for me, my connection profile would have already been set up. Well, let me just take you back to something. So command palette, connect. Now you could decide to create a connection. So you could say create connection profile. Now when you're creating your connection profile, this is the point I was making, because MS SQL Server is on your local computer, it's installed to your computer. You will type in local host, right? And you press enter. So this is the connection. So you just press enter after typing localhost. There are some other things that you will be asked to do. For example, you could give a database name that you want to connect to. Now this is optional. We will leave this part out because we want to create the database from actually typing the command. So I'm going to leave this blank and press enter. Now it is asking us for an authentication type. The authentication type can either be SQL login, integrated, or you could be using Azure Active Directory. Now, for the most part, for us, it will either be SQL login or integrated. And in particular, in my case, it is integrated because I am using my Windows authentication. I did not set up a separate login to my Microsoft SQL server. All right, so it's integrated for me. And for the most part, I think it will be the same for you as well, depending on how you did your installation. Now it is asking us to enter a display name for this connection profile. Again, this is optional. If I do not enter a display name, then the next time I try to use or I try to set up a connection, then I'll just see localhost with all the details in terms of where my SQL server is installed. All right, so I'm going to leave this as well. So leave it blank and press enter. Now down here it says profile created and connected. So we can now start to write our SQL commands. Right? Right, so to demonstrate the use of VS Code for writing SQL commands, I'm going to use this example here where we have two tables. One is called employee, the other one is called manager. So we're going to create a database and then create these tables and then carry out some queries on these tables. Now the requirements are as follows. Use the appropriate SQL command or commands to create a database called my business, create the tables shown above, insert the data shown in the tables above, display all records from the employee table with salary greater than $600, carry out a left join on both tables in the database, update the salary of the manager with employee ID 301. We're going to update that to $550, and then we are to remove the employee table. Well, remove from the employee table the record with employee ID 402. We're going to alter the manager table by adding a department column, and then we're going to display all records from the employee table with employee name starting with the letter B, and finally we're going to sum all the manager's salary. So we're going to write the necessary commands for these in VS Code. Okay, so let's start off by creating the database. So I'm going to say create. And the thing about writing your SQL in VS Code is that it has IntelliSense, so it will give you suggestions when you are typing. All right, so create database. All right, so this is the basic command when you're creating a database. We're going to call our database my business. Now, I usually like to end my commands with a semicolon. Again, it is not necessary. Now, if you look to your right, you will see a green play button. So I'm going to click this play button to execute my command. Now, to the right, a screen will come up. Well, the screen will be split basically. And to the right, it's our output screen. So it is saying to us that the command completed successfully. So our database was created. All right. Right, so I'm just going to comment out this bit of command here. So the next thing I want to do is to create the two tables, the employee table and the managers table. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is to write the command or the commands to create the employee table and the manager table. Right, so again, this is just basic SQL commands in terms of how to create a table in your database. So I'm going to run the command here. All right, and again it says that commands completed successfully. So that's the second question. All right, so let's just do a check to see if the tables were actually created. So I'm going to write a simple select statement. So I'm going to say select all from employee. So hopefully it will find my table. If not, I'll have to do a double check. All right, so it is actually seen our table. So employee ID, employee name, and all the necessary things that we would have set up. All right, so the table is actually there. Let's do the same thing for manager, just to see if it will find the manager table. Again, no data is inserted inside the tables as yet, hence the tables are blank. All right, let's check. All right, so unless I would have to double check the name for the table manager that I created. All right, so I was spelling manager incorrect, so we should find this now. So it's manager. All right, so this is the manager table. So the tables were created successfully. So even though I'm getting this red line here, the tables actually exist. All right, so the following command should insert these values in the employee table. Now, I'm just using one command block or one set of command to do a multiple insert. Notice how this is set up. So it's the same insert into that you would use for inserting or adding a single record to your table. All right, again, I like to list my columns and then the values. There's a value for each record that I want to be in the table. All right, so I'm going to insert. So it says 6 rows affected. All right, so what we can do is we can do a check to see if the record was actually inserted into the table. All right, so to check, I'm going to do a select all from employee. And as you can see, the data was inserted. All right. So I want to do the same thing for the managers table. All right. So again, a similar command. So we're going to insert these values in the manager table. So the manager ID, manager name, manager's salary, and their employee ID. So I'm going to hit my play button here. And it said that 3 rows were affected. All right, so let's try selecting all employees whose salary is greater than $600. All right, so this is a simple command again. Select all from employee where salary greater than 600. All right, and it returns 2 employees and their salaries are $1,000 and $700 respectively. And next we will carry out a left join on the managers and employee table. Right now, to do the left join, again, we will use the select command and we add the left join keywords to that. So employee table is written first, so it's the employee table is now looked at as the left table, and the table that is written second or written after the left join keyword, that is looked at as the right table. So manager is the right table, employee is the left table, and we can carry out this join based on something that is common between both tables. And if you can recall, and you can go back and watch the part of the video where we were creating the table. If you can recall, the employee table as an employee ID as the primary key, and the manager table as an employee ID as a foreign key. So this is one importance of your foreign key. Right? It allows you to create relationships between two tables, and it comes in very handy for cases like this where you want to carry out a left join, a right join, an inner join, outer join, whatever the case is. So let's run this command and see what the left join will look like. All right, so the left join is done. Now notice with the left join, it includes everything from the left table, which is the employee table. It also includes all information from the right table, which is the managers table. Now notice if there's no matching information or matching data, then those are marked as null. If you can recall, there are only 3 managers, and those are the persons with managers ID 1, 2, and 3. Everyone else are not managers, so these data set would be marked as null. All right, so this is our left join. All right, next let's look at an update command. Again, these are all simple basic SQL command. The main purpose of this is just to show that we can comfortably run our SQL commands in Visual Studio Code. All right, so we're doing an update. We're updating the managers table, and we are in particularly updating the manager salary where the employee ID is equal to 301. So again, let's run this update, and it says 1 row affected. So the update was done successfully. All right, next let's try delete command. So I want to delete from employee where employee ID is equal to 402. Again, it is very important when you are doing a delete to use your where clause. Right, so let's do our delete. 1 row affected, which means that it was done successfully. Next, let's alter the manager table by adding a new column, and we're going to be calling this column department, and we are setting the data type as varchar. So we are adding a new column to our managers table. Again, alter table manager add, and we're adding department. Right, it says that the command completed successfully. Now, a very useful operator when we are writing our SQL commands and we are trying to query or select data from a table, a very useful operator is the like operator. Now, what we're doing here is we want to select employee name, and we want the employee name to start with the letter B. Right, so for this, I'm going to say select all from employee where employee name like B. Now, when you're using the like keyword or the like operator, this percentage sign here is very important. So it's a letter followed by the percentage symbol or sign. Now, if the letter comes first, we are looking for a name starting with B. If it was the other way around, for example, if it was the percentage sign and then the B, we would be looking for a name ending with the letter B. And if the percentage sign was on either side of the letter B, we are looking for a name where the letter B appears in the name, anywhere in the name. Right, so what we want to do is to select all the names or find all the names where the names start with B. So let's run this command and see what we get. All right, from the employee table, it returns brown and black because both names obviously start with the letter B. Now, very useful as well is the sum function. There are other functions that are very useful as well. For example, average, if you want to do a count, those are all very useful functions as well. But in this instance, we want to sum all the manager's salary. So we simply say select sum, and it's a function which means that it will be accompanied by a pair of round brackets. So in the round bracket, we will put the column that we want to sum. In this case, we are summing the salary. So we're going to say select sum in parentheses or in the brackets, we're going to say salary, and then we're going to say from whichever table we are summing the salary from. All right. So let's run this. All right. So let us now try the sum function, which is a very useful function, similar to average, count. All those are very useful functions as well. Now, sum is a function which means that it is accompanied by a pair of round brackets or parentheses. What we will do is we will simply type the word sum, open a bracket, open a round bracket, type the name of the column that we want to sum. In this case, we are summing salary. Close your bracket because again, it's a function. Functions are accompanied by open and closing brackets. Then we are going to state from which table we want to sum the salary column. So in this case, we are summing the salary for all the managers. So let's run this and see. All right, so it gives us the total for the manager's salary. Now, you see here where it says no column name. We can change this and give our column a name. So to give our column a name, I simply type as total salary. So this will now become our column name. So we're doing select, sum in the salary column. The as is now saying that the column will be getting the name total salary. So let's run this and see if there's a difference. Now we can realize that the column now has a name. Right, so as a bonus question, I would like to show you how to create a view. And a view is said to be a virtual table that is created based on data from an actual table in your database. So let's say we want to create a virtual schema or a virtual table that lists all employees from the IT department, so that we could basically create that table as the IT department table. Right? Again, the view is virtual. It's not an actual table in your database, but it does present itself as a table. Right? So to create a view, we simply say create. Again, if you're going to create a table, create a database, create a view, then the create keyword is used. So we say create view, and then we give the view a name. I'm calling this view IT employees, and this will be created as a select command, or it is created using a select command. So we're going to be selecting the employee ID and the employee name from the employee table. Let's see if our view is successfully created. Right, it says commands completed successfully. Now, what we can do is, let me just comment out this quickly. All right, so we can go ahead and do a select statement or a select command on our view. Right, so remember, it wasn't created as an actual table, but it was created as a virtual table. So it still exists in our overall database, so we can query it if we so desire. So for this query, I'm going to say select all from IT employees. Run this, and it gives us the name of the person in the IT department. All right. So that's it basically. Again, the main point of this was just to demonstrate the fact that you can use Visual Studio Code, or VS Code as we like to call it, to write your SQL commands. In particularly, we would have linked VS Code to SQL Server from Microsoft using the MS SQL extension in Visual Studio Code. All right. Now, again, if you install SQL Server, and SQL Server Management Studio is a bit heavy for your system in terms of it is pulling on your resources too much, then you can simply install VS Code and use VS Code to write your commands. I am hoping as well that you would have taken away a bit more from this, not just installing VS Code and using it to interact or connect to SQL Server, but actually you would have taken note of some of the commands that you might not be as familiar with. For example, the command to create a view or the command to do a left join. Right, so that is basically it for this particular video.